Right, take two. So if my camera keeps trying to reconnect, then I start over. So take two, everybody. And let me know if you're having poor service. Let me know how it's going. So, also, you guys, if you have any questions, type them in bold letters. All right. So, all right. Now, let me know how the reception is, you guys. So, what I was saying in take one was that this section is going to tell us the story of how it happened that we were at oneness with God and then we fell from grace. It's going to talk about the cause of the separation, as we've heard it before, called the fall from grace. And then it's going to tell us how this occurred by starting with the metaphor of the Garden of Eden. And so it says that the Garden of Eden was a metaphor for the pre-separation state. So before we fell from grace, before the separation or the fall, we were in a state of being where there was no lack. We lived in a garden. Life was like living in a garden. No lack, no need, no fear, total abundance. That was the pre-separation condition. Now, something happened when we were in that state of mind of no need and no lack and no fear, no embarrassment. And what happened was, according to this, that it was. Oh, let me go back. Okay, so the garden is a metaphor for the pre-separation condition of no need, no lack, no shame. And then the tree in the metaphorical garden, the tree of knowledge, was also a symbol for the misuse of knowledge. So, um, so, and so now it's going to use this metaphor to teach us about what is the cause of the fall, how did that occur, and how is it still occurring now, and how do we stop believing the lies of the serpent, so to speak, and returning back to the garden that we came from. We were created in a garden and we came from a garden, and that's where we could go back to. That is a kind of life and a kind of world we could experience again if we can wake back up from the sleep that we went into in the garden. We believed the lies of the serpent. Adam and Eve were fed lies from the serpent, and what the serpent was, the lies the serpent was tempting Adam and Eve with, was the lie that you yourself can create yourself, that you could usurp the knowledge, that you could usurp what God created, knowledge, and turn it and twist it for your own belief and lack. Okay, so it's told us about the Garden of Eden. That was a metaphor for what? Now, it says in paragraph 5, it says now it wants to tell you about creation. Okay, so it told you about the garden, told you about the fall, and now it wants to tell you about creation. What is creation? What it says here is that creation was God projecting God's self out of himself and toward the children of God, the creations whom God created. So God projected himself out of himself, and he did so through an inner radiance. So how does creation go? Well, God created you by radiating you from within God. That's how God created you. That's how creation began, and that's how creation started, and that's what creation really is. But it says God also imbued God's creations or extensions with the same loving will to create. So God extended us out of himself through an inner radiance within God. And then God imbued us, God's creations, extensions, with the same love and will to create. So just now, like we have been extended and created by God, now we also want to extend and to create like we were created. And then it says in paragraph 5 that not only were we created fully, meaning full, meaning complete, but we were also created perfect. Now, what does that mean? That means that in the way that we were created with no emptiness or no lack within us. Wow. Um, so it's telling us about creation, how we were created, and the way in which we were created and what we were created to be. Okay, so let's not forget what it's saying here about how we were created to be. Okay, we heard how we were created. God's inner radiance of love and joy extended out beyond himself, and there we were. There we were born. And God also imbued us with the same loving will to create. I now want to I want to radiate from within my love, the love that I am. I want to do that. I have the same loving will to extend the love within me that I am, that God did when God created me. And when God created us with no emptiness, which means God created us perfect, no lack, no emptiness. God created us completely complete, lacking nothing. All right, let's not forget that. Real important, because that for what's coming up next, that point is real important. And then it says this, it says that, in other words, because God created you in God's likeness, you too are creative. Okay? God created you in his likeness, which means you too have a desire and a loving will to extend your own loving self. And also, you too are creative, just like your creator. Now, then it said in paragraph 5 that no child of God, no creation is capable of losing their creative ability. Nothing that was created by God is capable of losing its creative ability. You are incapable of losing your creative ability. Why? Because it said in paragraph 5, your creative ability is inherent in what you are. How beautiful is that? Boy, is that good to hear. Boy, is that good to remember about ourselves. Number one, I was created with no lack. I was created perfect. I was created complete. So that means there's no lack in me. There's no emptiness in me, period. And I was created and imbued with creativity that I'm not even capable of losing. So at any moment, I can either tune in and experience that I am complete. There is no emptiness in me. And at any moment, I could remember and use the inherent creativity, which also means power, that is also within me at any moment, because it's built in. So any notion, any perception that I am powerless over what seems to be happening to me, that I don't have the power to create whatever world I want to experience, I don't, whenever I am tempted to feel weak or limited or helpless or afraid or empty or inadequate or lacking, let me remember the truth about my creation, so that I can tune into that and utilize that power to create, and utilize the fact that I'm complete, to create just like my Creator created me, meaning that enables me to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy from an inner radiance within me. So, how beautiful is that? So, hello, Patricia and Gregory Thomas. It says the true purpose of form. Amen to that. Zen says, one, no lack, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love that you're sharing. I love hearing from you. I love it enables us to be in dialogue, which is so fun and so powerful and so creative. When we dialogue, remember, communication is creation. So anytime we are dialoguing, especially when we're dialoguing on truth, we are co-creating. Remember, we are creative. It's inherent. Can't lose your creativity. And this, according to A Course, dialoguing, communicating is the ultimate creation, co-creation. And if you have a question for how to apply this, then don't hesitate to type it. Just type it in all caps so that my eye catches your question. All right. Thank you, guys. So lovely to share this time with you. Okay, so that was the review from last week's session. All right, this is the name of this section is the cause of the separation. We're learning how it happened. The Garden of Eden is the metaphor. The Tree of Knowledge is also a metaphor for how we have misused knowledge. And we also heard about how we were created, how creation happens, and what we were created to be. All right, there's the review. So now we're going to hear about the way we do projection. So we heard about how God projected God's self out, and there we came to be. Now we're going to hear about how we use projection. And it's nothing, of course, like the way that we were projected. So, but it is going to explain how we got ourselves in this big hot mess called a world of pain and fear and lack and separateness. A world that truly does appear that a fall from grace and a separation from God did occur. Okay, that's what the world is a picture of. Yeah, there was a separation. Yeah, there was a fall from grace, and woo, here it is. This is what the world looks like. And so we're going to hear about the way we have been doing creation, which is really just projection, but ego projection, and also how to reverse that so that we can reverse that to the garden, back to the real garden, the pre-separation state of mind. Okay, and we can do it because we are creative. We are just as creative as our Creator. We were created to create, and we were given the ability to create that we aren't even capable of losing. So we can we can reverse the process of projection that we've been doing and get ourselves back into the state of mind of no need, no lack, no shame, no separation. Awesome. So that's our goal. All right. And Gregory says, yes. Oh, that felt so good to hear that. Amen to that. Yeah. And then Zen says, remember the truth of my creation. Yes. Oh, baby, it's so good to remember the truth of your creation. As a matter of fact, if you'll remember the truth about yourself, that does automatically answer the illusions and the lies. It replaces and it ends the lies that we have been believing. The serpent told us about, how that we are our own source, that we created ourselves, and that we can usurp knowledge for ourselves. That's what the serpent lied. That's the serpent's lies. It's also the ego's lies. Now here we go. Paragraph 6. Chapter 2, Section 2, Paragraph 6 in the Complete and Annotated Edition. Now, whenever projection in its inappropriate sense is utilized, the way we've been doing creativity, the way we've been projecting our thoughts out, the way we've been doing it, the way we've been doing projection, always always implies that some emptiness or lack of everything must exist within you, and that it is within your ability to put your own ideas there in you instead of the truth. Okay, so the way we have been projecting ourselves, the way we have been creating, we have the ability to create, we have the ability to extend ourselves like God did. The way we've been doing it is we've been looking within, seeing some kind of emptiness, some kind of lack that we believed was within us, and then we're believing that we can fill that emptiness with something we made up. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're looking within. Oh, lack, emptiness. There's lack of everything in me. I'm incomplete. There's a lot of lack and emptiness and inadequacy within me. And then we use our creativity to try to make up something that we can get from without and put inside of us, something we made, an idea we made, and put it inside us so that we won't experience lack anymore. Okay, that was projection as we came up with it. That's creativity as we came up with it. We used our creativity to believe the lies of the serpent, the ego, that told us that there's an emptiness or an incompletion or an inadequacy in us. And then we believed the lies of the serpent and the lies of the ego that said, now go find something, go make something up that can fill that lack or that emptiness or inadequacy that is in you. That's how it occurred. That's how the separation or the fall from grace or the detour into fear happened. That's when it happened way back in the days of the garden, the story of the garden, and it's also the way it's happening right now. So we're hearing about how we did it, and we're also hearing about how to reverse it. All right. And why are we doing that? Because we want to get back to the pre-separation state of mind where we live in a garden. Our life is a garden, our world is a garden, and we feel safe, and we feel safe, and we feel no shame, and there is no lack, and there is no inadequacy in our world, in our life. That we live life like in a garden. The garden we came from. Just like Joni Mitchell said, we got to get back to the garden. That's the goal here. So we just heard the way we do creativity, and then it said, but if you will consider what this entails, where you look within and see an emptiness, and then you project out your own ideas about how to fill that. Now, if you will consider carefully what this entails, then the following will become apparent. Okay. So in the process of believing the lies of the serpent and the ego, which said that there's some emptiness or incompletion or inadequacy in you, and then we extend out, try to believing that we can make up something that we can get from without to put inside of us, that process called projection, called inappropriate projection, entails these steps. So now we're going to read off the 4 steps of how we detoured into fear way back when, and we're detailing the 4 steps of how we are taking a detour from abundance and love into lack and fear. Okay, so this is what we did back then, and this is what we're doing now. And here's the first one. All right, so here's how it goes. It says the first thing that we did way back when we were in the garden and then fell from grace, and also what we're doing now, is this. We are assuming that what God has created can be changed by our own mind. Okay, so we were in the garden and we decided that what God created, us in perfection, complete, could be changed by our own mind. Okay, that is the tree that is the symbol of knowledge. We decided that we could take the knowledge of what we are, what God creates to be, and change it by our own mind. Okay, in other words, God created me, but I can change me. That was our first mistake. All right, that was the first mistake. Now, the second mistake that we made when we were in the garden, that was a lie that we believed that had us exiting the garden and falling from the garden life, is this: the idea that intruded, the idea that intruded in our consciousness, that us, the perfect, what God created perfect, could be rendered imperfect or wanting. Okay, that was the second mistake that we made, that had us, that was a lie from the metaphorical serpent, that we believed about the knowledge of ourselves, that had us believe that we needed to leave the garden, and has us believing we have to leave peace right now. Okay, so first lie that we believed that made us leave the garden, what God created perfect, I can change with my own mind. Like myself, I believe that what God created in me, I can change me to be what I make myself to be. In other words, I create myself. All right. The second mistake is the belief that what God created, namely me, namely creation, that I can change it. I can make it not perfect. I can break it. I can distort it, and I can hurt it. I can make it not perfect, because that's how powerful I think I am. I think I can break or bruise or make imperfect God's creation. Second lie. Now here's the third lie that the third lie that Adam and Eve believed from the metaphorical serpent and also the ego. Now, the third lie is a belief that has arisen, and it's a belief that is tolerated. And that third lie is the belief that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself. You can see the creations of God how you would like to see them, how you would like to see it, including yourself. You can change what God created to be what you want it to be, including yourself. That is the third lie that the metaphorical serpent tempted Adam and Eve with. To which they said, "Oh, that sounds like a great idea." Poof! Now they're out of the garden. Now they're on earth. Now, then the fourth lie that the metaphorical serpent tempted Adam and Eve with, that they believed, is that is an idea that entered your mind that you can create yourself. God didn't create you, you created yourself. And so the direction of your own creation is up to you. Okay, that's the fourth lie. So what's the fourth lie? Well, I create myself. God didn't create me. I create my own reality. I created myself. What I am is up to me to decide. That's the fourth lie, that way back in the days of the garden, that we believed in the form of Adam and Eve, and then promptly fell asleep. And now we don't realize we're in a garden. Now we think we're in hell, where the creation is up to us, and creation can be changed by what I want it to be, and that I can break or render incomplete or imperfect what God created, including myself. Basically like I'm God. So the tree of knowledge in the garden was a symbol for knowledge. What knowledge? The knowledge that God is our creator and we are God's creation and we can create like God, but we are not God, which means we cannot create ourselves. We've already been created. We can't recreate or change or alter what we were created to be. And so when in the metaphor is in the tree of knowledge in the garden, that that Adam and Eve taking from the fruit of the tree of knowledge is a metaphor for us saying, knowledge is mine because I am the source. The way I want reality to be, that's the way it is. The way I change this person or myself to be, that's the way we are. The direction of my creation is up to me. I created myself. I'm God. That is the metaphor for eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and then that being the first sin, and then us getting kicked out of the garden. All right. So that is how the detour into fear. That's how the fall, that's how the separation occurred. And it's also how our detour from living a life in the garden and then detouring into a life of deprivation and lack and separateness occurred. It's how it's still occurring now. It also detailed the very clear 4 steps of how this detour into fear occurred, how the fall from the garden, the exit from the garden occurred, and also how to reverse it so that we can come out, wake back up to the life as a garden that it can be, that it's meant to be, that it was originally created to be, that we can't change, thank God. So, welcome everybody. Welcome Diana and Doug. So happy to have you joining this healing circle. And if you have any questions about how to apply this to whatever you're going through, feel free to type it in all caps so that my eye catches the question. All right. Because always in my sessions, my goal is, number 1, that we hear what the Course is saying, and number 2, we understand how to apply it, to use it right now to whatever you're going through so that you can get the miracle that comes when you apply the truth to your pain, to your fears, to your illusions. All right. So, oh, lots of hearts. Yummy, yummy. Okay, so great. Now, then it says, now we're in paragraph 11, where it says, remember we just went through the 4 steps for how we left the garden and also how we leave peace and go into pain and fear and lack. Now, it says these related distortions, these 4 beliefs that we just enumerated, they do represent a picture of what actually happened, what actually occurred in the separation, the fall, the exit from the garden. This is how it happened. This is what happened, and this is how it happened, and this is how it's still happening now. Now, P.S., none of this existed before. None of this existed before those 4 lies, and nor does anything that, nor does any of these 4 lies and what it's manifested exist now. Okay, great. The family of God was extended as a natural grand division. The humanity was projected outward from God, and that's why everything which God created is just like God. Why is everything that God created just like God? Because humanity was a projection outward of God's self, of what God is. That's why we're just like God. Now, But that doesn't mean we are God. We are like God, but we are not the source. We are not the true authority. We're not the source of creation, but we do create like God. So the Course in Miracles says a good analogy is this: I have created my child Arya, and because she is like me, she is also able to give birth like I did, and down the line. But just because Arya is able to give birth just like me, that doesn't mean Arya gave birth to me. It's the same thing here with our source God. We were created to create just like God, but we are not God. But those four lies that we believed in the garden and still now was that no, you have the ability to usurp creation and be God yourself and create creation, including yourself. Those are the lies that we believed that 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 automatically made us fall asleep in the garden. Okay. Now, it's also what we're doing now. So if I am suffering in any way, shape, or form, according to A Course in Miracles, it means that I am believing one of those four lies. And now I believe that who and what I am is up to me to decide, and that I have the ability to change what I am from something perfect and complete to something that's inadequate and empty inside, and needing to get something from without to fill me up. That's that's what I'm doing now in any area of my life where I'm suffering. It's also the four beliefs that I can reverse and thereby end the suffering, which is the suffering is coming from the suffering that I'm experiencing is coming from those four lies that I've been believing, those four beliefs. So then it says this. It says projection as undertaken by God was very similar to the kind of inner radiance which the children of the Father inherit from God. Okay, so when God created us, the way God created us is God projected us out, which in this case really means God had an inner radiance, that we came from an inner radiance from the heart of God. And that's what creation is. That's how it occurred. It's also saying that's how we create. How do we create? Just like we were created, through an inner radiance. So we too we too create by projecting out, but not projecting out like we do, like projecting out from a sense of lack and emptiness, but radiating from an inner radiance from within us. That's how we create also. Not trying to make things up as we want to have it be and change things as we would have it be and think that it is that way. That's not creation. That's not being creative. That's not how we were created, and that's not how we create. That's just a projection from ego, and it's really just doing nothing with some painful results. So, so we inherit from God an inner radiance. It's not something you get when you've been in a spa for a week or when you've been in a meditation retreat for a week. Our inner radiance is something that we have inherited from our Creator. It is built in. So what's going on inside of you that you can't change and you can't break? It is an inner radiance. That is the truth about you. That's what's going on within you. And to acknowledge that inner radiance, that it's inherent in who you are. It's built in. And you radiate from that inner radiance. Well, that's you being creative in the likeness of how you were created. So now you're going to be creating like you were created, which is going to be some kind of beauty and power. Wow. How about that? All right. And then it says, it's important to note that the term project outward necessarily implies that the real source of projection is internal. And this is as true of us as of our Creator. So just what I was just saying, that the real source of our own creativity really is an inner radiance. So if there's something that you want to create in your, if there's something you want to create in your world or in your life, Course in Miracles says that that kind of creativity comes from radiating it out, which would have to mean being it. So if you want more love, if you want more joy, if you want more abundance, if you want more mighty companions, if you want more whatever in your world, in your life, according to this, you create it by radiating it. That's because, remember, creativity as God did it is inner radiance. So, like the Course in Miracles says, having and being are one, which means if there's something you're experiencing a lack of, it can only be because you do not believe you are it. So whatever you want to have, focus on remembering the way you were created, and by that, remembering that you have it, you are it, and then choose to radiate. When you remember that you are the love, you are the abundance, you are everything, and you remember that, well, you're naturally going to radiate it. You don't have to go, how do I manifest such and such and such in my life? Okay, I'm going to make a vision board, and then I'm going to try to change people around me so that they fit into that script. That is not that's not real creativity. Real creativity is, let me remember that I was created to be it already. I already am that. Why? Because the nature of my creation was I was created perfect, which means lacking nothing, no emptiness in me. I was created perfect, which means complete, which means it's all in me. Like Whitney Houston used to sing, I'm every woman. It's all in me. Now, that awareness produces the inner radiance that then radiates it out, which means creates it in your world and in your life. Beautiful. So your real source of creativity is internal, just like God's source of his creativity was internal. Your real source of creativity is internal. It's internal. It's something that comes from you when you remember the nature of your creation. All right. Hello, Billy, and hello, Jan. Welcome. Welcome back to This Holy Instant Now. All right. So where we are at now is paragraph 12. How are we doing on time? Wow. And don't forget, if you have questions, write them in all caps so that my eye will catch them. And I know I say it a lot, but it's important, and that is always be listening for how can I apply this? How can I apply this? Where in my experience have I detoured into fear? I was in love and I was in joy and peace, and took a wrong turn, believed some lies from my own ego, and the next thing I know, I ended up in East Hell. So ask yourself that question, because in that area of your life, you want to go trace it back and go, okay, yep, I was believing that what was going on was to me to decide, and what should be happening was for me to decide, and what's so about them is for me to decide, and what's true about me is for me to decide, and I believed I had the power to render myself incomplete or inadequate. In other words, I was believing that I was God, and that reality was up to me to decide. And I decided that I could make myself inadequate. I decided I could change what God created to be something that has emptiness inside of it. And then I decided how to fix that problem by figuring out how to get what I thought I was lacking and put it inside me. That's what I did that produced this situation that where I'm experiencing lack and pain and grievance and disappointment and heartbreak and my body's sick and my bank account is broke. This is how it happened. You were believing 4 beliefs that were lies. You believed them, you accepted them, and then you manifested it. You saw it to be true. And also, we also heard how to reverse that. And that's what we're working on now. It says here, it says the kingdom of God in its original connotation, okay, the original meaning of kingdom of God, which is very different from the meaning of the kingdom of God we learned. The original meaning of the kingdom of God included both the proper creation of us by God and the proper creation by us in our right mind. So, what was the original meaning of the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven? It was all of us who were created by God and all of our loving creations when we were in our right mind. That's what the kingdom of God really is. It's also a great description of what the garden is, the pre-separation condition, and also our life lived in the garden. Okay, so the garden life that we are going to be returning to is a state of mind. It's a state of mind that includes our awareness of how we were created by God. And it's also a world and a life where we're surrounded by our glorious, beautiful, holy, happy creations that we extended from our inner radiance that is around us now too. Okay, so that's a great description of the garden life that we started in and that we are returning to, or better yet, awakening to. It's awareness that we were created perfect, and also we're surrounded by all that we created from when we were in our right mind, that we radiated from our inner joy. Now, does that sound good? Who would like to go back to the garden with me? All right, so that's where we're heading back to, and this is how to do it. The goal here is to remember how we were created in the beginning, and remember the life, the kingdom of heaven. Remember the kingdom of the garden of no lack that we lived in. No shame, no fear, no separateness, no lack, no need. What were the lies we believed that made us fall asleep to that? How we can reverse that and experience life like that again. Got to remember the goal. Remember the goal. Now it says, your creations, that which you extended and radiated from an inner radiance and created, you being able to create like that required you with free will, required endowing us with free will. For us to be creators like God is a creator, God had to make sure to endow us with free will. Okay, to be able to create in the likeness of our own creation, we had to have free will. Right, that makes sense. And it says, and that's because all loving creation is freely given. Now, none of this loving creation that's freely given, God to us and us to our world, nothing in either of these statements implies any sort of levels. No levels. Or, in fact, there's nothing but one continuous line of creation in which all aspects are of the same order. So when it talks about our creation by God, and then our creations into our world. He says that doesn't imply any separation. Doesn't, just because I was created by God and I do my own creations doesn't mean I'm separate from God, or my creations are separate from me, or that my creations are separate from God. So what's really going on with creation is no levels. Creation is just a loving, continuous extension, one continuous line of creativity, one continuous line of creativity. No levels, no, all aspects are in the same order. Just because I was created by God doesn't mean I'm any less than God or any less important than God. Just like, just because I just because I created my creations, that they're any way less or separate than me. Okay, so just learning about the nature of creation, how we were created, how we create, how does it happen, how does it work, and also what we are, creators. But if you're a creator who's believing that you are the source of your own creation and your identity and your reality is up to you to decide, then that one line, that one continuous line of creation gets broken, and now we get sick. Now we don't know about the grandeur and the abundance, the garden that surrounds us. So the state of mind that is the garden state of mind, that is the pre-separation condition, is the awareness that I've been created. I was created perfect. I was created complete. I can't change that. I can't render myself imperfect or lacking. And that I create just like my creator. That is that awareness. That awareness is the awareness that creates the garden, the metaphorical garden that life started off as in, is now, and that we could wake back up to and experience again. Hello, Lynette. Welcome, all my mighty companions. Lovely to share this holy healing circle with you. Thank you. Thanks for helping to co-create this. Now, here we go. So then it says, paragraph 13, it says, when the, quote, lies of the serpent were introduced, these lies were called lies, well, because they're not true. Okay, so now Robert annotated this quote so that you know where it comes from. And so the notation on this, where this quote comes from, is Genesis 3:13. The quote from Genesis is, "Then the Lord God said to the woman, 'What is it that you have done?'" Unquote. And then the woman said, we know who she is. The woman said, "The serpent beguiled me, and I ate." Okay, so that's the quote from Genesis. Okay, so that's the reference in Genesis that he's talking about. And so the lies of the serpent. Remember, we heard the 4 lies of the serpent. Oh, your creation is up to you. You decide. Taking of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge. Knowledge is up to you to decide. You are the source of the knowledge. And the lies of the serpent tempted Adam and Eve with the apple, which is a metaphor for the lies. And instead of going, "That's crazy, that's impossible, that would send me right to hell," Adam and Eve said, "Okay, that sounds great. I would love to be my own authority. I would love to be God. Oh yeah, I could be God. I could so be God." That's what occurred metaphorically in the garden. It's also what is happening right now. The ego is the serpent who's tempting us with lies, and this is reminding us, P.S., those are lies. It's not true that your creation is up to you. That it's up to you to decide your worth, your value. It's up to you to decide, who and what you are. It's up to you to decide that you can be rendered imperfect or lacking or guilty or separate. Okay, that's the lie. Now, then it says, Now, when man listened to those lies, all man heard was untruth. So, metaphorically speaking, when Adam and Eve heard those lies from the serpent, all they were hearing was lies. And da 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 da, it says, and you do not have to continue to believe those lies that are not true. Yes, Adam and Eve and us believed those lies of the serpent. Yes, we did. Yes, man did. But you don't have to still be believing those lies, the lies of the serpent, and experiencing life as not a garden, the opposite. You don't have to continue to listen to those lies and believe those lies if you don't want to. Hallelujah. So wonderful. You don't have to if you don't choose to. Love to hear that. And because you don't have to listen to those lies and believe them if you don't want to, because of that, then all of your ego miscreations, all of your ego illusions and projections can disappear in the well-known quote twinkling of an eye. And the reason that all of the ego miscreations that you miscreated when you were believing the lies, all that you made when you were believing the lies, all the drama, all the pain, all the hate, all the sickness, all the lack, all the separateness, all the loneliness, all of that, since it came from those lies that you believed, then all of those illusions can disappear in the proverbial twinkling of an eye. Woo! Why? Because it's just a lie. All that your ego made can disappear in the twinkling of an eye because all that you made came from but a lie that you don't have to continue to believe if you don't want to. Wow. And it says the reason why all that your ego made while you were not in your right mind, while you were believing those lies, the reason it can disappear in the twinkling of an eye, because all of those illusions, all those symptoms of believing the lies, they are just visual misperception. And remember, your spiritual eye can sleep, but remember, a sleeping eye can still see. Okay, so just because, first of all the manifestations that came from you believing that there is some lack or emptiness or inadequacy in you, and that you could somehow render yourself imperfect, all the drama and the pain and the mistakes that you made that came from your false beliefs, they can all disappear in the twinkling of an eye because they're just a misperception, a misperception. And just because you are not seeing correctly doesn't mean your eye, your spiritual eye, has lost the ability to see. So beautiful. So just because you don't see, just because your eyes, just because you're asleep, doesn't mean your eyes have lost the ability to see. See what? See the truth. And what happens when you see the truth? What happens when you see the truth? All of your misperceptions, all of your drama and pain manifestations disappear. What did I say? They disappear. Now, how fast do they disappear? Do they disappear in a week? Do they disappear in a month? Do they disappear in a few lifetimes? This said they can disappear in the twinkling of an eye. Poof, gone. Okay. Why? Because they're just a misperception. And if you choose to see the truth, then the misperception's gone. Wow. Beautiful. Carol, welcome. Welcome. Any questions or comments? Any questions about how to apply this in any area of your life? Tell me what it is that you're hearing that you can feel the power of it to release you from the life that don't feel like a garden? What is it that you're hearing that you can feel has the power to release you from one kind of life and restore you to another kind of life that feels like a garden? That's what I want to experience. I want to experience life as a garden. No need, no lack, surrounded by beauty, no shame, no separateness, no fear, total abundance, total beauty. And I am there knowing that I am the child of a loving, abundant, brilliant creator. And then with me there in that garden life are all the things that I've created, all of the relationships I have created when I was in my loving right mind, when I had the awareness that I was created perfect and that I can't change that. Okay? That's how you get back into that life. All right, now, shall we go on? So, then it says, one translation of the fall, or the separation, a view emphasized by Mary Baker Eddy and worthy of note, is that, quote, a deep sleep fell upon Adam. So you may remember that Mary Baker Eddy was the one of the creators of science of mind, Christian Science. So now it's referring to Mary Baker Eddy's interpretation of the fall or the separation. And Mary Baker Eddy described the fall or the separation, the exit from the garden, as a deep sleep fell upon Adam. All right, that's a view emphasized by Mary Baker Eddy. Now, while the Bible seems to regard this sleep as a kind of anesthetic utilized for the protection of Adam during the creation of Eve, Mrs. Eddy was correct in emphasizing that nowhere is there any reference made to Adam's waking up. So indeed, she saw correctly a deep sleep fell upon Adam, and correctly she also noted that nowhere in the Bible is there any reference to Adam's waking back up. All right. And it says, while Christian Science is clearly incomplete, this point is much in favor of Christian Science, which was started by Mary Baker Eddy. So, in other words, the history of humanity in the world as you see it has not been characterized by any genuine or comprehensive reawakening or rebirth. Right. I'm going to say that again. The history, what Mary Baker Eddy was referring to is a good thing to note and to take note of, and it's this. The history of humanity in the world as you see it has not been characterized by any genuine or comprehensive reawakening or rebirth. Indeed. Indeed. When you look back at the history of humanity as we see the history of humanity, that's a big what's the word? Thing to note. The history of humanity in this world as we see the history of the humanity of the world. And as we see the history of humanity, there hasn't been any comprehensive or genuine reawakening or rebirth of metaphorical Adam, which is humanity. So in this metaphor, Adam is humanity. Adam fell asleep, a deep sleep fell upon Adam at his request in the garden. He fell asleep and he hasn't woken up since, meaning humanity hasn't, as we know human history, haven't experienced a comprehensive or genuine awakening or rebirth. The rebirth or awakening of mankind, okay? We're still waiting on that. Now, it says, this is impossible, this comprehensive reawakening or rebirth of mankind from the deep sleep. That's impossible as long as humanity projects in the spirit of miscreation. So it still remains within you to project or create as God projected his own spirit to you. In reality, this is your only choice because your free will was made for your own joy in creating. Your free will was made for your own joy in creating. Where's your joy? It's in creating. And that's why your free will was given you and imbued in you by God, because that's your joy, is in creating the perfect, which means extending the perfect, just like you were extended and created perfect. That's your joy, to create as you were created, to create the good, the beautiful, the holy, the perfect. That's your joy. That's what you were created to do. That's why it's your natural, real, genuine joy. And that's why God gave you free will, so that you could always freely choose to get back to doing what you were created to do. That's what free will was given you for. It's the ultimate protection, so that no matter what, you could choose to stop believing those lies, and you could choose to create just like you were created. And God gave you that because God knows that is your joy. You creating the perfect, the beautiful, the holy, the good, that is your joy. All right. Not getting your joy, not finding your joy, not figuring out who's got your joy in their body and then trying to figure out how to get it out of their body through guilt and then put it in your body. That's not your joy. That's not your love. That's not what really makes you happy. What makes you happy is for real, your real joy, which means lasting joy, is when you accept the truth that you were created by God. Your creation is not up to you. And God created you perfect. That is not, it can't be changed by you. That means you have everything within you. You are everything. And when you then extend or just radiate from that awareness, that's when you are doing what you were created to do. And that's when you'll be really happy. Now, any questions or comments? Welcome, Susie. All right. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next paragraph. All right, and it says, now we're on paragraph 16. And so, this is the perfect conclusion, wrapping up of this. All fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the knowledge and the power of God and turn the creation of God into what you want it to be in your fear, in your belief that there's emptiness in you. That's what fear is ultimately reducible to. All your fear, all your fear, all their fear, all fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp knowledge or usurp the power of God. Now, I decide what things mean. I decide what they are. I decide what I am. I decide what should be happening. I decide what this means. I decide what reality is. All fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the power to usurp knowledge, which means the power of God. And it's again emphasized that you neither can nor have been able to usurp the power of God and to usurp the knowledge that came from God and render it inept. And you take it for yourself, where you are God. You are the source of reality and creation. He says, so don't forget, you can't and you haven't. So, yay! You're afraid because you think you did, but your release is the realization that you can't and that you didn't. God's creation, you, has not been rendered inept or inadequate or incomplete or imperfect just because you wanted to see them and you that way. Good. And it says, and in this statement that you neither can nor have been able to usurp the power of God and be God, in this statement lies the real justification for your escape from fear. That's the good news. Because you can't change creation from what God created it to be, because you can't change them, because you can't change reality, because you can't change yourself from what love created you to be, that is your escape from fear. I can't do what I've been trying to do. I haven't done what I thought I did. And so now I don't need to be afraid. So fear comes from me trying to be God, me trying to decide what this is and what reality is and who they are and what I am. That's why I'm afraid. Why? Because I'm trying to do what I can't do, So of course I'm going to feel inadequate and afraid. So, but my release from fear is the realization that I haven't hurt creation. I haven't done any damage. I haven't changed something God created perfect to something that's imperfect and lacking. I haven't done it to anybody else, no matter how much I tried, and I haven't done it to myself, no matter how much I tried. It hasn't occurred. Love is still love. What God created them to be, they still are. They still remain as God created them. And you still remain exactly as God created you. You didn't hurt yourself or change yourself to something inadequate or lacking or unworthy. It didn't happen. And so now you can relax. Now you can breathe and not be afraid, because you didn't do what you thought you did. Hallelujah. Now you get to escape from fear. Welcome, Sarah. All right, and welcome, Tim. Awesome. So we just heard the escape from fear. Pretty good. Pretty practical. It says, and this escape from fear, however you're experiencing it, this escape from fear is brought about by your acceptance of the correction of the fear. And when you accept the correction for your fear, that places you in a position to realize that your own errors never really occurred. Wow. So when you accept the correction of the belief that you have the power to usurp the power of God and change creation and render it incomplete and lacking, and you have the ability to do that because you think you are God, it says, when you have accepted the correction of that belief, that false belief, then now you are in a position to realize that all of your errors never really occurred. Wow. Okay, so that's really deep. So what happens when you accept the truth that you are not the true authority, you are not the source of creation, you are not the source of your own creation, you're not the source of their creation, you're not the source of creation, and so creation is what God intended it to be, what God gave it to be, and you are not the source, you are not God in that regard. You did not create them. You are not God. When you accept that correction, now you are in a position where you can look at your errors and realize they never even occurred. Wow. So when you accept the correction of those 4 lies, not only are you going to feel better, not only are you going to have real joy and real peace, but you are going to realize that your errors never even really occurred. So they're going to be gone. Wow. They never really occurred. In other words, I didn't do the thing I think I did. So that didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen as I wanted it to happen and thought it happened and felt afraid that it happened. It didn't happen. It didn't occur. Creation is still whole. Creation is still perfect. You are still perfect. They are still perfect. Creation is still perfect. And all that you tried to make happen when you tried to be God never occurred, because it can't happen. It's impossible. And that awareness is your escape from guilt and fear and pain. and a life that doesn't feel like a garden. That is your escape from fear and pain. Okay. All right. Hello, Patricia. And hello, Sarah. So, guys, then it says, okay, so let me see if I should stop. Okay, if there's only one more paragraph, so I'm going to finish this section, What a Miracle, and then we're going to do the announcements, and the integration meditation. Now, last paragraph of section 2, chapter 2, paragraph 17. When the deep sleep fell upon Adam, only then Adam was in a condition to experience nightmares. Only when Adam fell asleep to the truth about his creation, only then can Adam have nightmares. Why is it that Adam and us, remember, Adam is humanity. When the deep sleep fell upon Adam, which means humanity, then humanity was then in a condition to experience nightmares. Well, that's exactly how our nightmares as humanity came about. And the reason that we as humanity and Adam could experience nightmares is because we're asleep. You can only experience a nightmare when you're asleep. So, if someone is asleep and they are having a nightmare, like humanity is, like Adam is, then if a light is suddenly turned on while someone is in the middle of a nightmare, then that sleeping person, the sleeper, is initially likely to interpret the truth, the light itself, as part of the nightmare. But, however, as soon as the dreamer of the nightmare wakes up, then the light, which means the truth, is correctly perceived as the release from the nightmare which is no longer accorded reality. So very important point here is that yes, when it refers to a deep sleep fell upon Adam, and then there's been no comprehensive reawakening or rebirth of humanity, he's also saying that only in a state where we as humanity are sleeping can we as humanity, the dreamer, experience nightmares. Now, something you need to know about somebody who's asleep and having a nightmare. Anytime you've gone to wake up somebody who's having a nightmare, what happened? What happens sometimes when you're going to wake up somebody who's like, having a nightmare in their sleep? You put your hand on them, you say, it's okay, you're only sleeping. But how do they interpret your touch? They usually go, they interpret your touch initially as part of the nightmare. Maybe they think it's the monster that finally got them, and then your hand feels like a claw. So that's how someone who's been sleeping and having nightmares initially interprets your touch or the approach of the light or the approach of the truth. Same thing when somebody's asleep and dreaming and having a nightmare and you flick on the light switch. Initially, they're going to interpret the light that you just turned on as part of the nightmare. You're like, now they're dreaming they died and they're going to the light. But as soon as they wake up, then they realize that the light you turned on or your gentle touch was the healing. They were released from the nightmare, and then once they woke up, then they realized it was just a nightmare, and the nightmare was no longer accorded reality. So important to understand relative to when you are in the presence of somebody who's having a nightmare. First of all, know if somebody's experiencing a nightmare, remember they can only experience nightmares when they're sleeping. And so the undoing of the nightmare is to wake up from the nightmare. And the only thing that wakes up sleeping humanity or a sleeping person from a nightmare is the light, which is a metaphor for the truth. And so that's the only thing that wakes sleeping humanity up from its nightmares is the light of truth, the light of true knowledge. What knowledge? The knowledge that God is the source of creation. God decided what creation is, how creation occurs. And God decided in his knowledge that you are perfect You are perfect. There is no emptiness, no lack in you. And knowledge also knows that you can't change that because you're not the source, although you create just like God, which is knowing the truth. So then it says, I would like to conclude with this injunction, quote, go and do likewise. Now it says, paragraph 18, it is quite apparent that this depends on the kind of knowledge which was not referred to by the so-called tree of knowledge, which bore lies as its fruit. So now a note from Robert Perry. He says, the fruit of the tree of knowledge was a lie because it affirmed that we have the ability to usurp the power of God. And so then it says, the knowledge that illuminates, in other words, the knowledge that is the light that wakes up sleeping humanity, is the light that not only sets you free from your nightmares of inadequacy and emptiness, but it is a light that clearly shows you that you are free. So what is, how did we leave the garden? We misused knowledge. We took knowledge for ourselves and said, I decide, I'm the source of knowledge. My creation and their creation is up to me to decide what it is. Like, I'm God. Okay, we misused knowledge. The metaphor is that we ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge. We took it on for ourselves. We decided we could usurp the power of God and be God. And then everything that we projected from that point forward was just part of a nightmare. It was just a nightmare, what we extended after that. Now humanity is still asleep dreaming that nightmare, that we can usurp the power of God. I am God, and so now, now I'm going to be God. Well, listen, if you are God and creation is up to you and it's up to you to decide what reality is, then we are screwed. And now we are in a nightmare. And that's why we're in a nightmare. Now, remember, what wakes somebody up from nightmares? What awakens sleeping humanity from nightmares? It's the light being turned on. What is the light being turned on? It's the awareness of true knowledge. What true knowledge? That whatever you did in your nightmare, whatever happened in your nightmare while you were thinking that you were God, didn't ever really happen. And it didn't happen because it was a dream, just like you wake up from these dreams and you go, God, thank God that wasn't really happening. Thank God that didn't happen. The same thing. The light that wakes you up from the nightmare is the light that shows you that you were just dreaming a dream and none of it was really happening. And so that light and that knowledge of how you were created and what you were created to be is the knowledge and the light that not only wakes you up from the nightmare, but shows you that you really are free. So, beautiful. So that is the end of section 2, chapter 2 in the Complete and Annotated Edition. So, if you have any questions or comments, feel free. I can see them right here. And do you have any questions about how to apply what we just heard? And what is the most helpful, useful, healing thing that you heard in this section, in this session? Go ahead and write it out. And then I'm going to do my announcements. So, announcements. So, all of my classes can be found on YouTube shortly. All of them, not all of them are there yet, but I'm working on that. So you can go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel, and then every time I post something, you get a notice. I post Course in Miracles readings, where I'm just reading the Course to beautiful music. I post meditations, classes from current classes from years ago. Meditations, just individual meditations. So that is all available on YouTube. You can also find my classes by going to my Facebook page and just scrolling through till you find them. Um, and if I'm not a Facebook friend, send me a Facebook request. And if you can, in that Facebook request, just put Course in Miracles or something like that. So I know why you want to be my friend, my Facebook friend. And that way, when I post on Facebook, you always get a notification, supposedly. So, and also, thanks to Winston, will have a mobile app soon where you can access my classes as well very easily in that way. And thank you, Winston, for that amazing miracle. So that's coming up too. Wonderful. Now we're going to do, and the other announcements is, if you would like to learn about my holistic counseling practice called Miracle Psychotherapeutics, you can go to annakujawa.com, learn about my miracle psychotherapeutic sessions and how to schedule one with me if you would like one. So that's annakujawa.com, ANNAKUJAWA.com. And if ever you're trying to contact me, find my phone number there on the website and text me. It's the best way to reach me. I have Gmail dysfunction disorder, so I feel so overwhelmed by all the emails I get. I sometimes don't see some of them. So don't take it personal if I have not responded to your email. Just understand I have a Gmail dysfunction disorder. It's nothing personal, and if you can, get my number from my website and text me. All right. Thank you. This is my little confession of my Gmail guilt. So now we're going to do the integration meditation. And what I do in my integration meditation after each session is we take the ideas and we put on some music and we use them, we work them, we apply them to wherever we need them, wherever we're experiencing our life and our world as a nightmare. That's where we need to wake up. That's where we need to take a look at the lies and the beliefs that we've been believing and choose to not believe those lies anymore so that we can stop producing a nightmare and wake up to the garden life that we came from and that we are still surrounded by and that we can live life in as long as we want. Okay. So go ahead and close your eyes and take a breath. Of course, unless you're operating heavy machinery. Please don't close your eyes then. Awesome. Beautiful. So, I want you to close your eyes and take a breath. And just tune into how you feel right now. And breathe. All right. So, how does it feel hearing these ideas in this session? And how does it feel hearing these ideas in a circle of mighty companions who also want to wake up from their own individual nightmare and our collective humanity nightmare? How does it feel to be hearing these ideas in this healing circle? Beautiful. All right, so I want you to bring to your awareness a situation or a relationship right now that feels like a nightmare that you're wishing that you could wake up from. It's this pattern of pain that just keeps recycling, and no matter what you do, you still got this pain, this pattern of pain and pattern of fear. We all got them. So I want you to bring that area of your life to your awareness. And I want you to just kind of look at it outside of yourself, project it from your mind's eye. And I want you to take a look at it as if you've projected outside of yourself, like R2D2, that's hilarious. And you've projected it like R2D2 as a hologram in front of you, and you're looking at this area of your life that feels like a nightmare. And because it's out there and you're here, it's safe, It's safe to look at it. Okay. Now, first thing I want you to do is I want you just one sentence, brief inventory of your story of why this area of your life feels like a nightmare. It will have something to do with if they were different, I'd be happy. If it were different, I'd be happy. This is happening to me. I have no control over this. And then take a breath. Take a breath. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, while we're looking at it, we're going to review the 4 lies, the 4 beliefs that went into the making, producing of this nightmare. Okay, now we are going to identify the true cause of the nightmare, the true cause of the separation that's being played out again in this scene, this repeating painful scene. Okay, are you ready? So, now, looking at it, what I want you to tell yourself first about this nightmare situation is, I was believing that what God created could be changed by my own mind. In this situation, I was believing that that person that God created or myself, that I could change them or me by my own mind. I believed I could change them and myself by what I wanted them to be. I believed that I could make them to be what I wanted them to be. I believed I could make myself to be what I wanted me to be. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was believing. That's the lie that I was tempted with, that I accepted. That's lie number 1, belief number 1. Now, good. Now, continuing to look on that situation, we're going to tell ourselves the next thing. We're going to say, I was believing the lie that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or wanting. I was believing the lie that they could be imperfect or lacking, or that I could be imperfect or lacking. I believed they were imperfect and lacking, and I believed I was imperfect and lacking. Okay? That's what I was believing. That's what I was seeing. That's what I was believing. I was believing they were imperfect and wanting, and that I was too. They weren't good enough. They weren't doing something right. They were flawed. They were broken, and so was I. Take a breath. Okay. We're talking about the belief causes of the nightmare that you're looking at. Third belief, third lie that went into producing this nightmare. The belief that you can distort or change the creations of God, including yourself. I can change them. They can change me. That's number 3. That's the third lie that I was believing about them and me that went into producing this nightmare. I believed that I could change them and they should change for me. And I was believing that I could change for them and should change myself for them. Okay, you recognize that? Beautiful. Okay, now are you seeing the connection between these beliefs and the nightmare that was produced from it? All right. Next lie or belief that we were believing that produced this nightmare. Number 1. Number 4. Tell yourself, I believed, I was believing that I create myself. That the direction of my own creation is up to me. I decide the thing I am. I decide who and what I am. That my creation is up to me. I am my own source. I am my own creator. I decide about what I am. Fourth lie, I believe that my creation is up to me because I'm God. I'm my own source. And so I decide what I am. That was lie number 4 that we were believing that went into producing the nightmare. All right. So now, take a breath. Now we are going to tell ourselves the truth that we heard about in here so that we would replace and reverse those lies and all the effects of those lies may disappear. So here's how it goes. We tell ourselves, I did not create myself. I did not create myself. I was created by God. And the direction of my creation is not up for me to decide. I cannot change myself from how I was created by God. And I was created by God perfect. Tell yourself the truth. I was created by God and I was created perfect. I was created complete. I was created with nothing lacking. I was created with no emptiness inside of me. I am perfect. There is no emptiness or lack inside of me. I was created as everything. Everything is in me. And the same is true about every other thing that God created. Every other creation that God created, the same is true about it. And now I just want you to take a breath, and you just told yourself the truth. You just told yourself the truth, or you let yourself hear the truth about you. And so I want you to just let it be within you and see if you can feel that inner awareness of your truth begin to radiate beyond your body, beyond the space that you're in, beyond the place you are, beyond the city you're in, beyond the state you're in, beyond the country you're in, beyond the continent you're in, beyond the planet that you're in. Inner radiance, creating from your inner awareness of your true creation, accepting the truth of your creation and radiating it from your light, from your joy that there is no emptiness in you, your joy that you have the ability and the power to create just like God, and that it is ecstasy. And that nothing can take that power to create. Nothing can take your creativity. Nothing can take your power to create like God away from you. You aren't capable of losing that. And so in this holy instant, let that inner awareness of your completion, your perfection, let it radiate, let it radiate, let it radiate. Experience yourself creating along the lines of your own creation, in the nature and the power with which you were created. And see if you can experience the ecstasy of radiating out your awareness of the truth and watching the garden that it creates of your life and your world. And breathe. And let your inner eye open and show you this. Beautiful. Beautiful. This is how we wake up. This is how we let ourselves be woken up. And this is how we wake the world up. Is not your heart ready to help sleeping humanity wake up? This is how you do it. I appreciate you, mighty companions. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you so much watching, joining your energy to this healing circle in which we accept our own healing and radiate it out into the darkness, awakening sleeping humanity. On behalf of all humanity who really desires to awaken, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining this healing circle. May peace extend from my mind to yours, and I'll see you next time I see you.